You paid good money for that steak, and there's a real chance you're about to wreck it in the last 4 minutes. Not because you can't cook, because almost everything most people believe about cooking a steak is slightly wrong, and steak punishes slightly wrong harder than almost any other food. Gray band under the crust, tough, chewy center, all that juice running out onto the cutting board instead of staying where you paid for it to be. Japan takes beef more seriously than almost anywhere on earth. This is the country of wagyu, of beef so prized it's graded like a diamond and priced like one too. A single steak of the best grade can cost more than an entire week of groceries, and it's marbled so finely with fat that it melts closer to butter than to meat. When an ingredient costs that much, you do not improvise with it. You learn exactly what heat does to it, down to the minute, because ruining a piece of that beef is not an option anyone can afford. That's the key thing to understand. The Japanese reverence for beef didn't produce a set of fancy tricks reserved for expensive cuts. It produced a deep, almost protective caution about heat, about not wasting a single degree of doneness, and that caution works on any steak at all. A $12 supermarket steak treated with the same care a Japanese cook gives to wagyu comes out dramatically better than the same steak thrown carelessly into a screaming hot pan. The respect is the technique, and respect is free. Here's the part that surprises people. The mistake that ruins most steaks has nothing to do with the pan or the seasoning or the cut. It comes down to temperature, and it starts before the steak ever touches heat, in a decision most people don't even realize they're making. That's coming. The whole approach comes down to a few things: what actually happens inside meat as it heats, the cold steak mistake, controlling the heat instead of fighting it, and the step people skip at the very end that undoes all their good work. Together, they're the difference between a steak that's tender and juicy and one that's gray and weeping. Start with what a steak actually is, because it explains every mistake that follows. Meat is muscle fiber and water, a lot of water, held inside those fibers. Gentle heat firms the fibers up and turns the inside from raw to tender. That part is good, but push the heat too hard or too far, and those fibers seize and contract violently, wringing out the water they were holding like a fist squeezing a wet sponge. That squeezed out water is the juice pooling on your plate. A tender steak has kept its water inside. A tough, dry steak has forced it all out. Same piece of meat, opposite result, and the only variable is how the heat was managed. Once that clicks, the gray band suddenly makes sense too. That thick, overcooked gray ring between the crust and the pink center is just meat that got too much heat for too long, its fibers seized and drained, wrapped around a middle that's finally done. The thinner that gray band, the better the steak was cooked. And almost everything the Japanese approach does is aimed at keeping that band as thin as possible, which points straight at the first mistake, the one from the start. The cold steak. Nearly everyone takes a steak straight from the fridge and drops it into a hot pan, and it feels completely normal because that's how everyone does it. It is also the reason so many steaks come out gray. A fridge-cold steak has a center sitting near 40 degrees while its surface hits the pan at hundreds of degrees. By the time enough heat has crawled through to warm that cold middle to medium rare, the outer third of the steak has been overcooked into that gray, seized band. The cold center forces you to overcook the outside just to reach it. The fix costs nothing but time. A steak left on the counter for 30 to 40 minutes before cooking comes up closer to room temperature, so the center is no longer fighting the heat. Now the whole steak cooks in something closer to unison, the outside no longer punished for the sins of the cold middle. It's the least glamorous step imaginable. It's just a steak sitting on a plate doing nothing. And it quietly prevents the single most common way steaks get ruined before the pan is even on. There's a way to see this on the plate, which is why steakhouse cuts often look better than home ones. A good kitchen either brings the meat up to temperature first or uses low, slow heat to close the gap between edge and center, so the finished cut shows a thin line of gray and a wide, even blush of pink. A fridge-cold steak seared hard shows the opposite, a fat gray collar around a small pink core. Same cut, same pan, same cook. The only real difference is whether the middle got a head start. But temperature going in is only half of it. What happens once the steak hits the heat is where the tenderness is actually won or lost, and it is where the most stubborn myth lives. Searing. There is an old belief that searing meat seals in the juices, and it is worth saying plainly that this is false. Searing does something better than sealing, but it does not lock in moisture, and cooks who believe it does tend to blast the meat on high heat the entire time, trying to build a wall that was never there. What a hard sear actually does is create flavor, a deep browned crust through a chemical reaction between heat, proteins, and sugars on the meat's surface. That crust is pure taste. It has nothing to do with holding water in. Understanding that changes how the heat gets used. Instead of high heat all the way through, which drives that gray band deep into the meat, the steak gets a short, intense sear to build the crust, and then the heat comes down or the steak moves to a cooler part of the pan to finish gently. Hot enough for long enough to brown, then backed off before the fibers seize all the way through. High heat for flavor, low heat for tenderness, in that order. The sear is a moment, not the whole cooking process. The Japanese are meticulous about one move here, which is basting. Once the crust is built, a spoonful of the hot fat in the pan, often with butter, gets tipped and spooned back over the steak again and again. Flavor is only part of why. The hot fat also cooks the top surface gently and evenly without the fierce direct contact of the pan itself, which means the steak finishes cooking from both sides in a softer way, keeping that gray band thin on both faces instead of just the one against the metal. And then the move that decides the whole thing, the one almost everyone gets wrong at the very end. Knowing when to stop and pulling early. Meat carries enormous residual heat, more than eggs, more than fish, and a steak keeps cooking hard after it leaves the pan. Its internal temperature climbs several more degrees while it rests. A Japanese cook, treating the meat as too valuable to gamble with, pulls the steak off the heat several degrees before its target, knowing that carryover heat will finish the job precisely. Cook a steak until it's perfectly medium rare in the pan, and it will be medium, edging toward, well, by the time it's cut. The steak that looks slightly underdone coming out of the pan is the one that's perfect on the plate. Every degree of discipline here is a degree of pink saved. This idea, pull it before it looks done, fixes more steaks than any pan or any cut ever could, and it leads directly into the step that people skip most, and the one that wastes all the care that came before it. The rest. A steak needs to sit, untouched, off the heat, for a good 5 to 10 minutes before it's cut. This is not optional. And it's not superstition, and skipping it undoes everything. When meat cooks, the heat drives its juices toward the cooler center, packing the moisture into the middle under pressure. Cut into the steak immediately, and all of that pressurized juice floods out onto the board, which is exactly the puddle everyone recognizes, taking the flavor and moisture with it. Let the steak rest, and the fibers relax as they cool slightly, and the juice redistributes evenly back through the whole steak. Cut it then and it stays in the meat where it belongs. The difference is not subtle. A rested steak and an unrested one, cooked identically, are barely the same dish. One is juicy edge to edge, the other leaves half its appeal in a sad pool on the cutting board. Those 5 minutes of patience are the cheapest upgrade in all of cooking, and they're the ones people skip because they're hungry and the steak is right there. One last move is worth borrowing from the way the Japanese serve beef, and it happens after the rest, with the knife. Beef has a grain, a direction its muscle fibers run, visible as lines across the surface. Slicing along that grain leaves those long, tough fibers fully intact, and every bite fights back. Slicing across it, cutting the fibers into short segments, does a huge amount of the chewing work before the meat ever reaches the mouth. The same steak, cut the wrong way or the right way, can feel tough or tender with no change to the cooking at all. It's the last decision and it's nearly free. Step back and it's really one problem repeated. A steak is ruined by heat mismanaged, too fast, too hard, too long, so the whole approach is built to manage that heat with respect. Warm the meat first so the outside isn't punished for the center. Sear hard for flavor, then back off for tenderness. Pull it early and let carryover finish it. Rest it so the juice stays in. Slice against the grain so it gives easily. Not one of those steps needs anything an ordinary kitchen doesn't already have. What gets me about all of it is how much happens away from the actual cooking. The steak is half saved before it hits the pan by simply sitting on the counter, and half saved after it leaves by simply sitting on a board. The fierce, dramatic part in the middle, the searing everyone focuses on, is the shortest and least fragile step of all. The care that decides a steak is mostly patience, applied at both ends. Try it once with whatever steak is in your fridge tonight. Let it warm up first. Sear it hard, then ease off. Pull it before it looks ready. Let it rest without touching it, and cut across the grain. The steak you use to gray out and dry into a puddle comes off the board pink, juicy, and tender, tasting like something far above what you paid for it. People think great steak is about buying wagyu and owning the right pan. Most of the time, it's about respecting the heat and having the patience to wait twice, once before and once after. That's the whole idea behind this channel, one dish at a time. The next one takes on the dish people are most sure they already know how to make, and the small correction that changes it completely.